Hey, what's going on? Hope everyone's doing well. I didn't do the usual setting up of a real thumbnail, description, all that stuff, because I'm still a little bit under the weather. I was supposed to record yesterday, and not under the weather like I'm sick, but I've just been having trouble sleeping, and it's been like making my days drag, trying to stay focused during the day job, and then trying to find the energy to record at night. And yeah, I don't know why. I've just been having sleep problems. So just wanted to get started tonight. And hold on a second. Just want to get started tonight and then try to turn in at a decent time. So trying not to stay up too late. I'm trying to mess with the lighting of this too. Hold on. Whatever. Anyway, hope everyone's doing well. We're going to talk about a couple of different things. We're not going to react to videos today, so that's going to be good because whenever I react to videos, there's always copyright issues. One thing I want to talk about, right? Actually, there's one thing I want to mention real quick because I'm reacting to this. It's going to kind of tie into what we're going to talk about today. But in a recent episode, there was a comment that I thought was worth weighing in on. Let me see if I can find the comment. Give me a second. Nope. That's not it. Give me one second. It won't take long. It was about the usage of the word woke. Oh yeah, here it is. Let me put it on the screen. I thought it was a fair point, so I wanted to bring it up. Someone asked a good question in the comments, so I'm going to ask that too. So right here, someone said, "What is the purpose of using woke, a word with actual history, to describe these types when the word has already been created for this exact purpose, social justice warrior? At this point, you're giving the right way too much leeway." And this is a good point. I don't agree with it, but it's a fair point. And what I would say is this: I mean, personally, at this point, I don't care, to be honest. Like, whether I use the word woke or not is not really going to make, I think, a huge difference to whether the right wins or not. I'll give an example of where I take this critique seriously, right? Like critical race theory. Critical race theory means a very specific thing. Critical race theory is a specific discipline created by Derek Bell that says certain things. And then the right started using it to describe anything that dealt with racism. They were lumping in like a lot of dumb stuff or black shit lip stuff with critical race theory. And, I agree with that. You know that they shouldn't use it for that. But woke is a little bit different. And there's a couple of reasons why I have a little bit of a different feeling with woke. Woke wasn't one of those words in the black community that was super, super used. And when it was used, we have to be honest, a lot of times we were taking the shit out of it too. Like most of the time when we were doing the woke or the I mean, like, there was a time during the Afrocentric era and stuff where people were using woke unironically, but for the most part, I mean, I think even in the black community, woke was kind of like a punchline. Like let's be honest. More often than not, it was kind of a loving punchline. Like, it was like a tongue in cheek thing that we used amongst ourselves or whatever. But a lot of times we were having fun with it. Like a lot of times when you had wokeness in a lot of times when you had wokeness, I'm gonna keep hitting play and stop. A lot of times when you had woke stuff, we were usually poking fun at it, like in scenes like this from "Don't Be a Menace" to South Central while drinking your gin and juice, etc.
With disrespect, oh my God.
Yeah.
The mother of Mecca is right here before me. Do my eyes not deceive me, or am I looking at the goddess Isis herself?
Here you go.
Can you do me a favor, my brown skin angel? Can you tap that white girl for me?
Yeah.
My milk of magnesia. Oh, after the devil made you, he broke the mold. Well, maybe you and I could make a little jungle fever.
Yeah, like there was a lot of times what wokeness kind of was, and it was a lot of times kind of like tongue in cheek, I'm not gonna say like there was scorn that they disliked woke people, but yeah, a lot of the times, there was a scene in the Martin TV show where there was a woke character. Let me see if I could find it. But yeah, there were a lot of like these kind of stock characters that would be kind of like the woke character. Like I feel like to a degree, people started kind of exaggerating how deified or respected the word woke was in the black community. Once right wingers started bastardizing, I admit right wingers did bastardize and demonize and ruin woke. So yeah, I will admit they did that, but it wasn't like the word to me. The word wasn't like a big loss. Like when people usually were talking about like serious radicals or people who are not performative, and people around my age who remember it differently, respectfully, you can feel free to correct me because maybe different regions of America, maybe we had different perspectives, or I'm just remembering it wrong. But the really respected radicals, like we didn't really use woke for them. It wasn't quite an insult, but it was a little bit tongue in cheek, and you would see with a lot of these characters that we would have in a lot of our media, like I feel like this is an example as well.
We must internalize the flatulation of the matter by transmitting the effervescence of the Indonesian proximity in order to further segregate the crux of my venereal infection.
Yeah, like I feel like a lot of times that's kind of what the parody of woke was, So, but I also think another problem that we did is why it's too late to claim it. We let some of the most annoying people in social justice circles start claiming the word as well, and I think that kind of made the word a target as well. Like we because we didn't want to seem affiliated with the right wing or whatever, we would let like really annoying people become the face of identity politics and also use words like woke. But something else too. The person who wrote the comment said when there were perfectly decent words like social justice warrior, but they hated that too. Whenever I used the word social justice warrior, they would accuse me of giving the right wing too much ground. There's no word that these people like. If I was to use social justice warrior instead of woke, people got mad at me for that too. They would be like, "Oh, that's a right wing buzzword. You can't use virtue signaling. Virtue signaling was apparently a dog whistle. Everything's a dog whistle." And the problem is, it's a big problem is, and this is who I put the blame on the most. The people who behave this way don't want to accept the name. They don't want to use a name because if they were to have a unique name for how they behave, then they'd be easier to criticize. What they want is to just be, and I said this in a recent video, they want to hide under the umbrella of garden variety general liberalism or progressivism. So that way, when you criticize them, they could be like, oh, well, like for example, if you criticize these people as, acting a certain way, like, you call them social justice warrior or woke, they'll be like, well, I guess you would have had a problem with Martin Luther King, or you would have had a problem with Malcolm X. Like, and the reason why they say that is because they want to be able to hide behind the more benign form of anti-bigotry or the more benign form of humanitarianism and not to zero in on their specific toxic brand of weaponized identity. You know what I mean? Like, Breonna Joy Gray had a term that she was recommending people use instead of identity politics, called weaponized identity, which I agreed with because I always tell people I don't like using the word identity politics because there's good identity politics. And if you use identity politics to describe as a catch-all, the toxic kind that these people do, then you're throwing out the baby with the bathwater. But I feel like if you were to use the word weaponized identity and make it catch on, these people have a problem with it. They would want to be called identity politics because then now they're in the same company or the same umbrella as the Black Panthers or the Freedom Riders or whatever, But when you call them weaponized identity, it's a too specific a carve out. So I think the real problem or the real culprit to blame for the word woke sticking is these people themselves, because they refuse to ever accept a term for themselves. And it wasn't by accident, it was on purpose. They did not want to have a term, because once they have a term, now they can be criticized, and like I said, they don't want that. I'll give you an example. This is a piece I've mentioned before, and it's by Freddie DeBoer. I'm just going to pull it up for a quick second. So, Freddie DeBoer had an article about these people, and the usual thing happened, similar to this commenter that I'm responding to now, where they were like, "Oh, woke is a dog whistle. What does woke mean? Or why are you giving the right any ground or whatever?" So this is what Freddie DeBoer wrote. Yeah, it used to be. Yeah, people like Dr. Umar and stuff and conspiracy theorists were like the original wokes. But that's kind of what I'm saying. Like, if we're being honest, it was always a little bit of a pejorative, even in the Black community. I mean, it was more comedic than hate mongering like the right uses woke, but there was a short window where it was maybe a little bit revered, like during the Afrocentric, kind of Hotep era of rap, when being Afrocentric was like really kind of mainstream, like, Native Tongue, Queen Latifah, Brand Nubian, 5%er rap days. But yeah, it was a short window. It became kind of a joke, I think, pretty quick. But I'm gonna show what I'm talking about right here. So Freddie DeBoer wrote this. Please just fucking tell me what term I am allowed to use for the sweeping social and political changes you demand. You don't get to insist that no one talks about your political project, and it's weak and pathetic that you think you do. And then he puts this tweet by Adam Sower. Part of the utility of this kind of use of woke is that it expresses sentiments that people using it would be uncomfortable articulating directly, which is why anyone getting a question like this should simply respond by asking them to explain what they mean. So what happens is whenever you use the word woke or social justice warrior, they'll be like, well, what do you mean? And then they do more gaslighting. They'll be like, well, would you say Martin Luther King was woke? Or what about Gandhi? Was Gandhi woke? Was this woke? And it's like, well, no, I don't think Martin Luther King was ever hounding anybody to for setting this up when they were like 15 on social media and trying to make sure that they never work again and get them banned for life and canceled for life and drive them to suicide, or we're crying because somebody wore a Chinese dress or culturally appropriated noodles or something, like and wanted them kicked out of public life over it. I mean, it isn't like these things are. I'm saying that they're not even bad, but the crime is always like way the punishment is always way disproportionate to like whatever the crime was, and it's this weird illiberal revenge motive to it. It's like you're guilty until proven innocent. The burden of proof is on the accused, not the accuser, and this is kind of anything goes. This weird flattening of things, like. Like, for example, on the shitty men in media list that was famous a couple of years ago, there were people who were accused of having like a creepy vibe put on a spreadsheet with people accused of like literal forcible rape, and then people would just be like, yeah, this person was on the shitty men in media list, and it would just be this kind of implication that everybody on the list was on the same level. This is very, very bizarre, but yeah, that's a very specific thing. But he goes, Freddie DeBoer writes, personally, I've been achingly specific about my critiques of social justice politics, but fine, no woke. It's a quote-unquote dog whistle for racism. The term dog whistle is a way for people to simply impute attitudes you don't hold on to you to make it easier to dismiss criticism, for the record. But the same, well, I don't think that's true. Sometimes dog whistles are dog whistles, but sometimes dog whistles are used the way he's saying. But the same way people say there's no such thing as political correctness, they also say identity politics is a bigger term. Which is what I'm trying to say. Like, for a certain type of person, no matter what term you use, is bad. So that's what kind of made me just give up and stop caring anymore. Because after a while, people know what I mean, And again, if it was a big enough problem, these people would come up with an alternative term instead. They would just, but they never do. So they don't want you to use any term you come up with, but any term that you, but anytime we ask them to give you a term, they won't do it. So this article actually does fall into the trap of saying that the right-wing version of CRT is correct, which is not. It goes, although they propose sweeping changes to K-12 curricular, but you can't call it CRT, even though curricular documents specifically reference CRT. Someone look at what he's talking about here to see what he's saying. Because I'm curious if people on the left were actually misrepresenting themselves as CRT. So I'm clicking the link and it's gone. But it's a link to something that the media person Lee Fong wrote, who I don't really trust. He's very anti-black. But yeah, CRT means something very specific. And if it is true that some of the people that were mistakenly being accused of being CRT actually contributed to that confusion by calling themselves CRT, then that is some bullshit. But I don't think that justifies compounding that mistake and calling things that are not CRT CRT. I hesitate to even call intersectionality CRT. I feel like Derek Bell made a mistake by even letting that in under the umbrella. But also, if it's a Lee Fong tweet, it's deleted now, so I won't be able to find out what it was. But yeah, most of the time, to me, a lot of the new terrible black anti-racist stuff from the Great Awakening, very little of it I've ever found refer to itself as CRT. In fact, hold on. Hopefully this won't get a copyright strike. But what's her name? The one who was just fired from MSNBC. Joy Reid. That's who it is. Joy Reid. This, I think, is a very good thing to kind of show about how bullshit the whole CRT is. I mean, I do think some of the people in the black anti-racist circles, they did know what CRT was, but I do agree that they didn't call themselves CRT. I don't think they studied up on. I'm not saying it's used with the same disdain. I said that you might have came late, but I said earlier that it's not used to the same disdain as it is now, and it's changed a little bit. But I'm saying even at its best, it was always a little bit tongue in cheek, and it did. And woke did overlap more with dashikis and conspiracy theories and astrology and kind of like Erykah Badu. And the music on her first album would have been kind of woke. You know, like the 5% of stuff was a better example of what woke used to be. But I feel like it was a short window of time where it was used unironically in the black community. But even at its best, there was always a little overlap with this kind of love. It was more of a positive, loving ridicule, but it was still like the butt of the joke a lot of the times. But yeah, let me show this. I think this is pretty good.
D'Angelo is not a critical race theorist. Identity is inherently racist. So what you're doing is you're playing a series of word games. You know that critical whiteness studies is a subfield. It's a
so this I thought was pretty good, and I'm not crazy about Joy Reid in general, but I thought this was good. She kind of drops the ball at one point, but check this out.
Critical race theory. So we reached out to him. I've interviewed him before. So we reached out to him because you say he's the guru of critical race theory. You name him a lot of your, both in your manifesto or your talking points memo, but also in your video. We reached out to him. We asked him if he's a critical race theorist. He said, I admire critical race theory, but I don't identify as a critical race theorist. I'm not a legal scholar, so I wasn't trained on critical race theory. I'm a historian. And Chris would know this if he actually read my work or understood that critical race theory is taught in law schools. I didn't attend law school, which is where critical race theory.
Now, one thing that's different about Ibram Kendi, he does have a name for what he does. He calls it anti-racism. He has books on how to be an anti-racist, or, he had an anti-racist center at school. I forget what school it was, but yeah, he had book conferences, and he had books like Anti-Racist Baby, like anti-racism for kids. So with him, I think it's different, the misuse of CRT, than it's for woke, because unlike the wokes or social justice warriors, he didn't say, don't call me this, but then refuses to give himself a name and do it in a way to kind of keep you from talking about him in general. Like what the other people like Adam Serwer and the other example we're doing is they're trying to keep you from talking about them and discussing or calling a thing, like that these people are doing a very unique form of politics that is worth criticizing. They're trying to gaslight you into from admitting that what you're seeing is what you see. Like what you're seeing is not what you see. There is no movement that deserves a name. We're not doing anything different than what's been happening for decades in liberal/leftist circles. You know, it's kind of bad faith thing. But critical race theory is not like that. Like the critical race theory, the people say we're not critical race theory, but they're willing to define what critical race theory is. Like what these people do, they don't want to define what woke is. They say we're not woke, but they also won't define what woke is, but they also won't give themselves a name. Like critical race theory is clearly defined. There's clear works in it. There's clear names to follow, clear scholarship, and people like Ibram Kendi differentiate themselves by giving themselves a unique name. In Ibram Kendi's case, is anti-racism.
Is taught. It's really the only place it's taught. NBC has looked into everywhere, and it's not taught in elementary school. But hold on a second. This is the second thing he said, which is strange to me that you.
Let me respond. This is not a monologue. This should be a dialogue, right? Am I right?
It's my show, so it's how I want to do it. So let me read you one more quote from him, because you've made a lot of claims about critical race theory, saying that white Americans are inherently racist, that racism is inherent to whiteness. And that is one of the core charges that you're making about, you know, these sort of what you consider like sort of woke studies in school. This is what Ibram Kendi has said in his own words. He said, "We've been taught that racist is essential to who a person."
I want to skip ahead because this is not really important to.
It's very. I'm going to call white people. White identity is a subfield of critical race theory.
No,
these things are all deeply interrelated.
So watch what he says here.
So what you're doing is you're playing a series of word games. You know that critical whiteness studies is a subfield of critical race theory.
No, it's not.
These things.
It's a critical whiteness theory. Is not a subfield of critical race theory. It's something that. And they never claimed to be, but keep watching.
These are all deeply interrelated.
No, they're not.
And I'm not going to let you play word games. And this is really, I think, the most essential thing.
Hold on. No.
Let me respond at least once. I haven't gotten a full sentence out.
Because I'm not going to let you see. One of the things that, and I don't know, you probably never watched me on TV. Just, you know, we didn't know who each other were, you know, not so long ago. But I don't allow people to just make up and say lies on the show. It's just not really right to do that and let people hear. But hold on, Robin DiAngelo. Wait.
Am I right
Robin DiAngelo is not a critical race theorist, and I want everyone to know that. Robin DiAngelo. I don't know who the other woman is, but she's not. But let's just go through a minute, because whiteness, you know, and racist. Whiteness and racist. Sure. Where did the term whiteness come from?
Okay.
There is includes. I think that we should fight race essentialism. But the problem is that critical race theory enshrines race essentialism.
But you
see it in schools.
So one thing that keeps doing is it keeps calling everything critical race theory anyway. So he just keeps with the bit.
And I'll give you 3 examples of critical race theory being taught in schools.
Hold on one second.
In Cupertino, California.
These are in your talking points, sir. Chris, these are in your talking points, and I know what you're going to say because you said it with Mark Lamont Hill. You repeat these same things. They're in this manifesto. People can read out mine. Let me just go for a second. On the subject of whiteness, are you aware, since you say that, I guess you're sort of a quasi-historian in your thinking, that whiteness was actually formed in the United States?
Tell me, lumping people into...
See, now that's what she wasted time. She wasted too much time trying to have good faith arguments about the actual definitions, and this is the part that I think she should have stuck with right here, because I think it's easy for him to just filibuster and do a bunch of bullshit equivocating and what they call it gish gallop, to just talk. Ben Shapiro does this, talks really fast and just spams a lot of untruths, like too much to reply to that sound plausible, that make it seem like he's answering the question when he's not. This was the part that I thought was the killer, but I think she should have stuck with this. She should have let off with this and stuck with this.
To white, black, Asian, as you suggested, is such a crude and broad categorization.
There's these like very pathetic and very, angry graduate students that try to fight me on these highly technical, Hegel interpretations. And it's like, I don't have time for this. I don't give a about this stuff.
So you don't give an S about this stuff. You're really just having a campaign to.
Damn it. I got to find the exact thing. Because there's a part where he admits that he knows that it's not actually critical race theory, but he wants to keep it. He wants to keep calling it that anyway. Okay, yeah, here it is. So he says, I don't give a shit about this. And then there's this part.
Practice or generating discontent, which is you just described. And then you can respond to it. I'm going to read you to you, and then you respond to it. The activists are realizing that their ideas, once put into practice, are generating discontent, which is you just described. Their racial coalition is also breaking apart. Asian Americans, in particular, revolting against CRT, which is really Christopher Rufo there because you made it up, is punishing them more than any other group. Then you said we have successfully frozen their brand, critical race theory, into the public conversation and are steadily driving up negative perceptions. We will eventually turn it toxic as we put all the various cultural insanities under that brand category.
So he says we're going to put all types of insanities under that brand category. So he admits that he knows that all this stuff is not actual critical race theory, but they're going to put every single thing that sounds insane under that title to get people to throw out the baby with the bathwater, because actual critical race theory is very good and very useful. But by getting the kooky woke stuff under that same umbrella, now whenever anyone does encounter the real critical race theory and they see it calling itself critical race theory, they're gonna be like, oh, I know what this is. This is gonna be that anti-racist baby type stuff. So she keeps reading.
The goal is to have the public read something crazy in the newspaper and immediately think critical race theory.
Yeah, so he wants people that whenever they see anything crazy, they will associate it with critical race theory, which is, because I think he's actually afraid of real critical race theory because it's actually persuasive and smart, and he doesn't want people to read it. So if he gets the more crackpot shit lip stuff lumped under that, he kind of poisons the well. He kind of discredits the good stuff before people even read it. So now if someone says, hey, I want you to read this great work by Derek Bell, and you look at it and it says critical race theory in the cover, you're like, oh, I know what this is.
We have decodified the term and will recodify it to annex the entire range of cultural constructions that are unpopular with Americans. Aren't you just taking wokeness stuff that annoys you and calling it critical race theory?
No, not at all. The idea of the codification and decodification of language comes from the critical pedagogist Paulo Freire.
See what he said? She pointed out something very clear. You said that you want people that you're pulling a scam, and now he starts talking about Paulo Freire and whatever. But look at his face. See what his face is doing here. This is called duping the light. It's like when you're pulling a fast one, you can't help but smirk. And if you look, he knows he's bullshitting. So if you look at his face, he's always got this kind of smug little smirk.
Annex the entire range of cultural that are unpopular with Americans. Aren't you?
Because he knows this thing's only a couple minutes long. He just has to filibuster until it's done.
Wokeness stuff that annoys you and calling it critical race theory?
No, not at all. The idea of the codification and decodification of...
See, he's not talking about what she actually put on the screen. He's just filibustering.
Language comes from the critical pedagogist Paulo Freire, and my strategy is to take these...
Now you're doing pedagogy, Christopher?
Yes.
Yeah, so she just... I have to admit, she did a decent job on this one. The part where I think she went wrong was that she wasted a little too much time in the beginning arguing with him about the specific terms and whatever, when she should have just stuck with, isn't this you admitting you don't care about this stuff and that you're deliberately lying and misrepresenting and doing propaganda?
To take these techniques and use them against their own ideology. And I'll tell you, Joy, my strategy has been enormously successful.
So he didn't respond to anything that she put up there. He didn't address that he admitted that he was trying to lump everything crazy under the term critical race theory. No, you're giving him too much credit because you're thinking that he's doing a good faith misunderstanding. He doesn't think CRT means to literally criticize races. He knows what CRT means, but he wants to trick impressionable people into thinking CRT means to criticize white people. But don't mistake deliberate lying for not understanding. This guy I mean, he's kind of dumb, but he's not that dumb. He's smart enough to know that he's lying at least. So yeah, he totally knows. So yeah, I mean, this is the one part I disagree with the Freddie DeBoer article on is I don't think most people who are woke and anti-racist lump themselves under CRT, except for maybe intersectionality, because intersectionality technically was added to the school of critical race theory. I think, unfortunately, because I think it ended up becoming the face of it, and I don't think that's academically rigorous or honestly valuable. I think he was trying to be nice personally, and basically he died, and Kimberly Crenshaw lived, and she became like the kind of the face of CRT after his death. And I think it's kind of unfortunate, because I think his work is much better than hers. But nobody ever advocated for defunding the police, and if they did, it didn't actually mean defunding the police. And that's one of the things that woke people say. If you point out that they want to defund the police, they'll say that no one actually believed that, and if they did, it was just an expression. It wasn't literal. Seems to be a real resistance to simple, comprehensible terms around here. Sewer is a guy who constantly demands that he and his allies be allowed to do politics on easy mode, but he's just a part of a broader communal rejection of basic self-definition and comprehensible terms for this political tendency. And if you say things they don't like, they might try to beat you up. Emphasis on try. I don't know what that's about, because he links to a tweet, and I bet you that tweet is going to be gone as well, because I feel like a lot of tweets from the era, from the Great Awakening, are kind of gone. People either shut down their accounts to go to Blue Sky, or they just the tweet is gone. That's one of the worst things about this era, is that so much of it lived on social media, and social media is so ephemeral. Like, there's no like record for the craziest moments of a lot of this. If you ask these people, are you part of a social revolution? They'll loudly tell you, yes, they are. They're going to shake society's very foundations. Well, okay, then what do I call your movement? You reject every name that organically develops. I'll use the name you pick, but you have to actually pick one. And I agree with this. Like, what do we call you? You can't just bitch on Twitter every time someone tries to describe your political cohort, which again, you yourself say intends to change the world. Name yourself, or you will be named. The basic stance of the social justice set for a long time now has been that they are 100% exempt from ordinary politics. Black Lives Matter proponents have spent a year and a half acting as though their demand for justice is so transcendently obviously correct that they don't have to care about politics. When someone like David Shore gently says that they in fact do have to care about politics and points out that they have accomplished nothing, they attack him rather than do the work of making their positions popular. Well, sooner or later, guys, you have to actually give a shit about what people who aren't part of your movement think. Sorry, that's life. The universe is indifferent to your demand for justice, and remains so until you bother to try to change minds. Nobody gives you what you want. That's not how it works. Do politics. Think and speak strategically. Be disciplined, work harder, and for fuck's sake, give me a simple term to address you. Please, because right now, show us that you don't want to be named because you don't want to be criticized. And yeah, I think that's a problem. So then later on, it kept happening. The response to that article was more people crying. So then he did a follow-up article. He says, as I've said many times, I don't like using the term woke myself, not without qualification or quotation marks. It's too much of a culture war pinball now, and now deemed too pejorative to be useful. I much prefer the term social justice politics to refer to a school of politics that is typically referred to as woke, out of a desire to be neutral in terminology. However, there is such a school of politics. It's absurd that so many people pretend not to know what woke means. And the problem can be easily solved if the people who support woke politics would just adopt a name for others to use. no to woke, no to identity politics, no to political correctness, and I would also add no to social justice warrior. Fine, pick something. The fact that they steadfastly refuse to do so is a function of their feeling that they shouldn't have to do politics like everyone else, but they do. So then he tries to make his idea of a definition of what, by his observation, woke means. So that when people just try to say, oh, there's no such thing as woke, it's just being liberal, it's just being progressive, and what we're doing is the same thing as Martin Luther King or Malcolm X or Medgar Evers or whatever. So he tries to make a list of things that make this specific, that it's not just garden variety socialism, it's not garden variety identity politics. This is a very modern, specific, toxic manifestation. So he says, I don't agree with all of this, but I do appreciate the attempt to define it, because I think both on the right and the left, nobody wants to define what woke is. And this is something I'm actually trying to write an article about, like to try to define it, right? But one is academic. The terminology of woke politics is an academic terminology, which is unsurprising given its origins in humanities departments of elite universities. Central to woke discourse is the substitution of older and less complicated versions of socially liberal perspectives with more willfully complex, and I would say impenetrable academic version. So civil rights are out, anti-racism is in, community is out, intersectionality is in. Although they do like to use the word community as well. I would say there's a lot of repetitive in-group jargon. That's one of the things in my definition. I call it RIJ. There's a lot of repetitive in-group jargon that gets used. Equality is out, equity is in, homelessness is out, unhoused is in, sexism is out, misogyny is in, advantage is out, privilege is in. Whenever there's an opportunity to introduce an alternative concept that's been run through academia's weird machinery, that opportunity is taken. I would say that is a key part of cults. Cults like having impenetrable in-group jargon that repeats itself, and it's a way to signal that you're part of the in-group, but also to kind of confuse people. Immaterial. Woke politics are overwhelmingly concerned with the linguistic, the symbolic, and the emotional, to the detriment of the material, the economic, and the real. Woke politics are famously obsessive about language, developing literal language policies that are endlessly long and exacting. Utterances are mined for potential offense with pitiless focus, such that statements that were entirely anodyne a few years ago become unspeakable today. Being politically pure is seen as a matter of speaking correctly rather than acting morally. The woke fixation on language and symbol makes sense when you realize that developers of the ideology are almost entirely people whose profession involves the immaterial and the symbolic. Professors, writers, reporters, artists, pundits. They retreat to the linguistics because they feel that words are their only source of power. Consider two recent events. I'll just jump on because I don't want to read everything. Structural in analysis, individual in action. The woke perspective is one that tends to see the world's problem as structural in nature, rather than the product of individual actors or actions. Sometimes the problems are misdiagnosed or exaggerated, but the structural focus is beneficial. Curiously, though, the woke approach to solutions to politics is relentlessly individualistic. So the problems come from structures, but the solutions are all individualistic, like, give me jobs or things like that. Rather than calling for true mass movements, which you cannot create without the moderation and compromise the social justice set tends to abhor, woke politics typically treats all political struggle as a matter of the individual mastering themselves and behaving correctly. I would also add rewarding people on an individual level. So it's like, here's this huge problem that's happening, and it's structural. Police violence is a structural problem, but a solution: give a handful of us DEI jobs in C-suites. Or police brutality is a huge deal. What do we need? Oscars so white. Give some black people some Academy Awards. Yeah, so I would say that's part of it. Emotionalist is another aspect. emotionalist rather than emotional, meaning not necessarily inappropriately emotional, but concerned fundamentally with emotions as the currency of politics. In woke circles, political problems are regularly diagnosed as a matter of the wrong emotions being inspired in someone. Someone feeling invalid is no longer an irrelevant matter of personal psychology best left to a therapist, but instead a political problem to be solved. I would also add being invisible. Like feeling invisible or feeling unheard is like a real political problem now that mass politics has to solve for you. Like, you know, that you don't feel represented, that you feel unseen, you feel unheard. A lot of our energy gets dedicated to that instead of real material systemic solutions that are actually fixing people's lives and giving the most help to the people who most need it. Fatalistic. Woke politics tends toward extreme fatalism regarding solutions and the possibility of gradual, positive political change. Institutions are all corrupt and bigoted, so institutions cannot prompt change. Most people are irredeemably racist, and so the masses cannot create a just society, and so forth. But I would also add that doesn't mean that you can't keep emotionally blackmailing them to try. So all these things are irredeemably racist or whatever, but they will still keep demanding that you give them DEI programs, that you keep trying. It's never going to be enough. You're going to be emotionally blackmailed in an open-ended way forever, and it's never going to be real solutions. It's going to be individualistic solutions like, you know, give me a job, give me representation, hire my friends, you know, whatever. You're never going to do enough that you're going to get a pat in the back or be let off the hook because you're irredeemably inherently corrupt. But you're not so corrupt that I don't feel entitled to keep making demands out of you. And then whenever you finally stop, I'll be like, well, I guess you didn't really care. You know, kind of when Target stopped the DEI, it's like, or all these other corporations, oh, I guess you didn't really care about all the stuff you said that you cared about, even though you claim these people were irredeemably racist all along anyway. But insisting that all political questions are easy. Woke people speak and act as though there are no hard political questions and no such thing as a moral dilemma. Everything is obvious if you've only done the reading and done the work, which woke people assure you they did long ago. If you don't know what the right thing to do or say is, it's only because you aren't really dedicated. Two more. Possessive belief in the superior virtue of the oppressed. And 8, I'll skip that. But yeah, so this thing ended up getting attacked as well. I thought it was a little bit too long as far as the workable definition of woke, but I thought this one was one of the best attempts at trying to name wokeness. This one I thought was very good. And it still got attacked as racist. This person was told that they were endangering Black trans children and wanted them to die by this article. And it's the most benign, harmless, you know. So this one's called Unlearning the Language of Wokeness by Sam Adler-Bell. And this guy was trying so hard to be even-handed and fair. And you gotta look at this. Several nights ago, I shot up in my bed with a ringing in my ears and the queasy sense that the ceiling was getting closer and further away at the same time. I assumed I was living in some kind of post-COVID neurological episode, or maybe an acid flashback. It was neither. What I was in fact experiencing was a series of thoughts about wokeness. And now, dear reader, despite some reservations, I'm going to share them with you. What can I say? Misery loves company. Let's get one thing out of the way. This discourse sucks. Quote unquote wokeness may once have had a relatively stable meaning, signifying among 20th century radicals and artists, Black radicals and artists, something like staying wise to the persistence and insidiousness of white supremacy in American life. Now the term has been abused and stretched to a point of such ample unintelligibility that its mere appearance in text or speech reliably signals that an unclear or tendentious thought is about to be expressed, inducing in me at least a slack-jawed irritation that's phenomenologically not unlike having my ears boxed. Now, one thing I will say about the definitional fuzziness of wokeness, it doesn't fully come from just the woke people. Ironically, both the anti-woke and the woke both get off on having wokeness ill-defined, but for different reasons. The left-wing people who are woke want woke to not be defined because then they can't be criticized. They can hide behind more benign forms of progressivism, and not have their specific toxic form isolated, accurately described, and criticized, and basically excised and cut off as a cancerous tumor to progressive politics that it is. Now, the right-wing people, they also want woke politics to be lumped in with more benign, useful left-wing politics, but for a different reason. The woke people want wokeness to be conflated with good liberalism so that they can hide behind the good liberalism and use it as cover for their toxic behavior. The right-wing people want wokeness conflated with good liberalism so that they can use the wokeness to contaminate the good liberalism. So it's like, if you lump constructive material identity politics with a lot of the more crackpot academic woke stuff, like what Christopher Rufo was trying to do with Derek Bell's work in critical race theory, by what he said in those tweets about trying to get it all conflated, into one thing. He can now discredit Derek Bell's work without having to ever actually engage it, because he can't engage Derek Bell's work. Derek Bell's work is too airtight. It doesn't help that its most frequent invokers are so irritating. The pundits who inveigh against wokeness tend to fall into two categories. First are conservatives who oppose the goal of a more expansive liberatory agenda on principle, and for whom wokeness is a conveniently pre-stigmatized shibboleth with which to launder their underlying disdain for a more egalitarian social order, which is what I was just saying, which is what Christopher Rufo is doing. He hates egalitarianism in general, but the more toxic wokeness is easier to stigmatize and discredit. So he is using this particular toxic strain as a way to attack all egalitarianism. And the woke people are using egalitarianism in general, which a lot of people find is uncontroversial, to kind of smuggle in their own toxic agenda themselves. In a weird way, both sides are doing the same thing for different reasons. And second, there are the popularists who believe the capture of liberal institutions by overtly left-wing communicators is bad for Democratic Party political outcomes. These latter pundits often conceal their disinterest in, if not disdain for, the goals of the insurgent left behind a plea for strategic unanimity and compromise. And so, the loudest critics of wokeness are usually either A, reactionaries who would despise left-wing values regardless of the idiom in which we express them, or B, liberals who have made such a fetish of electoral margins and campaign messaging that they don't recognize as legitimate those forms of political activity which are not reducible or in every instance conducive to the goal of electoral gain. Something I would add, a third group that should have been getting mad about this is people who actually do want to practice radical politics, but in a constructive, material, actionable way. People like us should have been the ones leading the charge against this movement the most, because it was us that was getting, it was people like us who were getting the most sabotaged by these people. But the problem was too many people didn't want to seem like bad guys. And on the surface, these were people who were against misogyny. They were against racism. They were claiming to be in the left side of the spectrum. So, I think a lot of us well, not really me, but a lot of other people felt like it was, you know, like when I'm complaining about that Bell Hooks is not really saying anything, and that she's just self-help and milquetoast liberalism disguised under fake radical talk. And then people would write me, like actual organizers and stuff, and they'd be like, I don't think you should say that because, you know, I work in organizing, and a lot of people, Bell Hooks is a lot of people's entry into organizing. I'm like, that's the whole fucking problem. Like, because she's a lot of people's entry into organizing, I'm supposed to like handhold and pretend that, you know, her work is constructive, but that's why so much organizing and so many institutions suck now. Like the fact that a lot of these people are coming into the movement through these types of readings. Like, why do I have to indulge that you came to radical politics through Bell Hooks, and once you're around, you're going to be a spoiler. You're going to, you know, bring your weird ideas about black men and black patriarchy and all your divisive, endless subdividing of black people into black women and black men and black queers and black disabled, and make it so that people can't find a common cause at anything. Like, that's why so many things happen. We let too many spoilers in to these movements because we feel like, oh, their hearts are in the right place, you know. And I think that's been kind of a problem. Yeah. So yeah, the uplift never applies to the collective. Yeah, the problem applies to the collective. The uplift is always to a handful of grifters. Yeah, all the people that carried water for the grifters have been rebranded around Blue Sky now. Okay, so those of us who believe in a more egalitarian racial and economic order and who doubt the Democratic Party is the only or best vehicle for achieving it have no particular reason to trust either of those factions. Their critiques of our political strategies are impossible to disentangle from the incompatibility of our political visions. You know, it's interesting. I think in this article, Sam Adler Bell himself is trying to become this third group. He's one of these people who I think is on the left. Even though he's being nice about it, I think he's tired of being kind of held hostage and emotionally blackmailed by this wing of emotional terrorists on the left that keep anything from moving forward. So he's trying to write this article. But even in this article, as nice as he's trying to be, and I used to have this problem too, I would try to talk about this stuff and give all these disclaimers that I wasn't racist, sexist, you know, whatever, or transphobic or all this stuff. And it doesn't matter. They'll still accuse you of it anyway, because there's no such thing as good faith or constructive criticism to them, of them. So he goes, that all being said, I want to suggest that the critique of wokeness may point to a real problem for socialists, feminists, and other radicals, one obscured by our disdain for its messengers and its motivation. This real problem is obscured because it overlaps at times with our opponents' tendentious complaints. So we dismiss it. So basically what he's saying is, a lot of times because right-wing people or DNC type centrist liberals are the ones bashing woke, we dismiss their complaints, or we side with the woke people because, you know, the enemy is my friend. And plus, what the woke people stand for on the surface superficially seems like what we're aligned for. You know, they're against racism, they want equality, they're fighting for the underdog, you know. So I think that's what he's saying, which is what I was just saying, that we kind of give these people a little bit too much grace to the detriment of ourselves and our movement. So he goes, to elucidate it further, I'm going to offer, God forgive me, another definition of wokeness, one which bears at least some semblance to the way it is deployed in our jaundiced contemporary discourse. And this is definition. And I think his definition is actually better than Freddie DeBoer's. I think it's very succinct. And I wish this caught on, but he got pretty much roasted and attacked on Twitter. And I feel like he dropped this article. He never really kind of fought for it or, built on it. I think it went so badly, he just treated it like a third rail and left it alone, which I think is a shame, because I think this was the best definition of wokeness that I've ever seen attempted. And I've been trying to use it and popularize it for years. Wokeness refers to the invocation of unintuitive and morally burdensome political norms and ideas in a manner which suggests they are self-evident. So it's like you're bringing this labyrinth of rules and social mores and ways of living and thinking that are unintuitive, like they're not common sense. They don't come naturally, like they're very counterintuitive and they're morally burdensome. And you're trying to treat them like political norms and mainstream ideas in a way that suggests that they're obvious. So it's kind of like, and it's very tricky because there's two things that happen. You need them as like a priestly class to educate you. You know what I mean? And you have to listen to the reading list. Like, you must read these 30 people. You must read these books. You must read. So on some level, they're acting like this is very hard and you need them to explain it to you. But if you don't roll over instantly and just swallow whatever it is they're shoveling on you, or you push back a little bit, or you ask inconvenient questions, they treat you like you're stupid and it should be obvious, and they'll attack and condescend you and browbeat you into submission, and they'll punish you for not getting it right away and for not just immediately rolling over and submitting to the program. So it's like it's obvious when it's convenient to pretend it's obvious, but also hard to understand without help when it's convenient to pretend so. Usually when they're trying to sell you their help or get you to hire them as the person who will teach it to them. So yeah, like for these reasons, I don't really bother with caring about using the word woke. I don't care. Yeah, the right use it in bad faith, but so did the people also who were on the woke side of things. They weaponized it and wouldn't engage in good faith discussion of their own politics, and they allowed woke to be weaponized by the right. And I think the horse is out of the barn. Like people used to complain that woke was just a dog whistle for the N-word. Like woke is just a way to call black people the N-word. But I would say black people, we're not even the face of wokeness anymore. Like people think of a white-haired Portland or Brooklyn lady, some white Portland or Brooklyn lady with purple hair now and a nose piercing when they think of woke, and maybe like a very specific looking type of black person with like a septum ring and who's queer. Like I think it's beyond us now. Like the idea, there was a time where I think it was kind of used as a dog whistle, like a polite way to say the N-word, but I don't even think so anymore. I think it's thought of as like a white bourgeois thing now, and yeah, the horse is long out the barn. And I think there's a lot of people to blame for the misappropriation of woke, but I also, again, I don't remember it as being such an endearing word in the black community that we really loved and fought for the word. Like sometimes we used it earnestly, sometimes we used it tongue-in-cheek to make fun of people. It was a type of character, but I mean it also had a lot of overlap with the Hotep and the Conscious Brother. Like I feel like the less pejorative more commonly used word when you were using it, when you're trying to describe this type of person in a very unperformative, serious way, you would tend to call them conscious, you know? So yeah, I mean, that's my thoughts on it. And yeah, that's pretty much it. And today's Tuesday, but this was supposed to be Monday's show. I was a little under the weather yesterday, so it's a day off from when it was supposed to air. But Thursdays, you know, everything goes well, will happen on the same day that's supposed to happen. But also, don't forget to comment, like, share, subscribe, and also hit that new button. I forgot what it's called. What's that new button called? Hype? Yeah, hit the hype button. Yeah, apparently that really helps a lot. Hype, like, comment, share, subscribe. Become a member of our Patreon. You can go to patreon.com. Champagne Sharks. Yeah, so hit our Patreon. And there's all these ways to support us: Venmo or CashApp, PayPal, champagnesharks@gmail.com, or go to Patreon, become a member there. Yeah, all of it's always appreciated. And we will see you guys on Thursday. I mean, this is true. I'm sick of our lingo being stolen and misused, but do you know that word bothers me way, way more than woke? This is the one that bothers me. Simp. Simp is the one that bothers me the most, because that one had a very specific use. I love that word. Like, woke was used sporadically. Like, I remember when Donald Glover did that song "Stay Woke." That's one of the first times I heard woke in like a decade. It was almost like a throwback. And even in that song, it was kind of tongue in cheek. It was a 70s sounding song. It was a throwback. Like, but simp had decades of heavy usage, and it meant a specific thing, you know. And it was a guy who was debasing himself for a girl and was more into the girl than she was into him. And, you know, he was basically being used and debasing himself, and was in a unreciprocal relationship. And then white people turned simp into just synonymous with like shilling. Like, I couldn't take that. Oh yeah. Salam said the same thing. Yeah, simp. So yeah, I agree with you on that one. Like, I will fight for simp more than I because we were still using that, and it had a lot of good use. It was great. And now, like, people will use simp for like dumbest stuff. Like, somebody said, I saw this leftist YouTuber say that Jon Stewart was simping for Israel. I was like, what? Like, you guys had a word, shilling or grifting. Like, stop it. Yeah. So anyway, everybody, be good, take care, and we'll see you on Thursday.